best time in a sailor's day is to watch the sun as it dies away. Here's one more day on the great funnel line.
It was 9/11 before 9/11, the original war crime of the 20th century. On May 7, 1915, one of the world's great ocean liners, the RMS Lusitania, is finishing its New York to Liverpool run. In a shocking surprise attack, a German submarine strikes with a single torpedo. After a massive and still unexplained second explosion, the Lusitania sinks. In just 18 minutes, the civilized world is turned inside out, creating a mystery that persists to this day. A mystery that refuses to be solved.
We've got a pretty bad weather problem. It's going to severely hamper what we planned on doing today.
Now an unprecedented expedition tears into the heart of this controversy. What really sank the Lusitania?
We've gone further inside this wreck than anybody's ever gone before.
Aha, there's the wreck!
Secrets buried since 1915 come to life.
If I had to guess, I'd say we're probably about 20 feet inside this breach. It's just littered with ammunition rounds.
But some secrets fight to remain hidden.
According to the skipper, the high winds are coming.
The cutting tool is 10 inches from being complete.
But if I call it a halt and he's 2 millimeters to go, we're gonna have to call it a halt.
We are about to witness history in the remaking.
That's the teak decking you see there, that's the timber. It's one of the handrails along the wall that you run your handle on.
Dark secrets of the Lusitania. In 1965, for the 50th anniversary of the Lusitania sinking, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation recorded interviews with a handful of survivors. The uncensored master tapes remain in the CBC archives. What you are about to hear are excerpts from these recordings.
You think if you're going to die, your mind would go to God, but it's not what you think. The thing was to get out, get out, get out.
We rode away, and then people that wanted to be saved would get hold of the boat, try and get in. Well, of course, I waved to my husband as he went down with the boat.
As your boat went down, you could still see him on the deck.
Oh, yeah.
To him, right?
Yeah.
In the cabin next to me, there was a lady. She had a little boy, but he was about 18 months. And she hadn't got to him. But I had my baby in my arm, and I tried to pick him up. But I couldn't do it, and I had to leave him. It must have been terrible for him, you know.
People were jumping overboard, people were being thrown overboard. Boats were being smashed to pieces. There was most utter chaos. And then I saw her start to take her final plunge.
When she went, I wasn't far enough away, and she sucked the baby out of my arms, but fortunately I looked at her and I knew she was dead.
I did for about, good 10, 12 years, wake up in the middle of the night in the most awful nightmare, feeling I was being sucked under, and found myself standing on my bed.
We were in the water. My baby gave a terrible scream and we both sank. And I came up and the baby was gone.
There's one thing I'm going to tell you. You don't think about God.
The sinking of the Lusitania redefined the rules of war. Much like the events of September 11, 2001, nearly a century later, the attack shattered accepted concepts of right and wrong. When that torpedo left its firing chamber, the word civilian lost its meaning, sparking a debate as to cause and morality that continues today.
Strangely, there's still a lack of understanding. During the decades that have unfolded since the sinking of the Lusitania, no one has settled down on one theory as to what happened.
There were two explosions. The first, from the torpedo shot, crippled the vessel. The second was described by eyewitnesses as almost immediate and catastrophic. Many believe this blast doomed the ship, causing the huge loss of life and elevating a tragedy to a war crime.
The prevailing theory about the large secondary explosion is that the ship was carrying an illegal consignment of high explosive ordnance.
The rules of war in those days were you don't put war material on a passenger liner, or to put it another way, if you put war material on a passenger liner, it's fair game to sink it.
A liner of that size sinking in 18 minutes is kind of unheard of. It's still a mystery, and unless we can get down there and get to the root of it, we won't find that answer.
For some, the questions have become a compulsion, and in the summer of 2011, that compulsion turned into an expedition. The culmination of a 40-year effort for the man who actually owns the Lusitania.
I'm 83 now, and this is probably my last really good chance to do anything serious on this.
Businessman Greg Bemis acquired a 1/3 interest in the Lusitania in 1968. He's since become well known in the Irish diving community.
I admire him for his tenacity, for pursuing this for so long, when most people would have turned and walked away at this point.
What is the Lusitania to you? I mean, it's almost like you have a human relationship with it.
After 40 years, it's almost as long as I've been married. I've been married 59 years, so I got it beat a little bit, but this is Lusitania is certainly one of the longest projects I've been on.
Bemis became sole owner in 1982. His intent was to salvage the wreck, which was sunk and still lies just under 20 kilometers off the Irish coast.
It was considered the Mount Everest of wrecks. You know, the Titanic is more famous, but it's at 12,000 feet, you don't dive there. But this, at 300 feet, you could dive. And there was some valuable cargo on board, not gold or silver, but brass and copper and things like that. Today, to me, maybe this just happens as you get older, the monetary aspect of it is nowhere near as important as the historic aspect.
I think he's an amazing character. Not very graceful. An amazing character. His passion and his determination to see this thing through to the bitter end. I take my hat off to him.
How'd you like it home, Greg?
It's very luxurious. I just feel very strongly that history should be recorded properly, and to do that we need to know what caused the explosion.
Not far from the loading dock lies the town of Cove, known as Queenstown in 1915. Many of the unidentified dead were buried here in a local cemetery.
So there is a lot of strong connections around here. A lot of the dead and the survivors were brought into Cove. Now that the wreck has been deemed an archaeological site, every process that Greg wants to go through has to be vetted and scrutinized and deemed the right archaeological process in which to carry it out.
In 1995, the Irish government declared the wreck location a National Heritage Site. Today, dive expeditions must be licensed by the government and conducted according to accepted archaeological practice.
The Lusitania has been part of the psyche of Ireland, and anyone who's interested in history and World War and all that has been a part of that. Anyone living in my generation have certain awareness about it. I am hoping that we can sort of gel and mesh all those sort of different disciplines together, because in terms of the physicality of the wreck, it may be the last time that anyone will see it.
From a wreck site that lies around 100 meters deep in open ocean to a state-of-the-art explosives facility at California's Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, the expedition hopes to penetrate deeper into the ship's wreckage than ever before. The goal: uncover definitive evidence of the cause of the second explosion.
We've got 4 possible theories to explain this secondary explosion. Boiler rupturing, coal dust, aluminum powder, or some sort of munitions, gun cotton.
If this second explosion was caused by aluminum powder or gun cotton, then the Lusitania was carrying military contraband. If the explosion was the result of coal dust or a boiler, then the German torpedo was solely to blame. Whatever the final answer, this original war crime must have a perpetrator. But was it the Germans for sinking a helpless passenger ship, or the English for allowing civilians to sail into a war zone on a vessel possibly loaded with munitions? Our mission is to find out. ILV Granuaile is the flagship of the Commissioners of Irish Lights, the general lighthouse authority for Ireland and its adjacent seas.
It's not normal business for us at all, but at least I wasn't told yesterday. We've had a chance to prepare for this, and already the synergies between my crew and the new people, or the people who are on board now to work, is actually quite good. Can we go through that, around that?
Yeah. Can we see inside there a minute?
It's top secret.
Is it top? No!
Well, there's a degree of excitement about it as well. It's not just lifting an innate object or looking at innate objects on the seabed. I am absolutely looking forward to taking a peek at those underwater cameras as they move around the point of interest on the wreck.
The success of the mission depends on an array of high-tech equipment and expertise. The submersible team features a one-man diving chamber nicknamed the Newt suit. It's a submarine a diver can actually wear, and the pilot is able to spend hours deep underwater with no need for decompression.
Okay, so I'm just hanging out at the cut site here.
Flying wing to the Newt suit is a state-of-the-art two-man submarine. Known as the Dual Deep Worker, it can dive to 610 meters. Its novel twin-pod design provides enhanced viewing, critical given the limited visibility at the wreck site.
Roger, 2 meters to go, and then we'll be on site, over.
Tech divers are in effect extreme scuba divers, able to descend safely to depths of 100 meters or more, thanks to advanced rebreather systems that utilize a precise mixture of helium and oxygen called Trimex. The divers have perhaps the most dangerous job on the expedition. They are by far the most vulnerable underwater.
This is topside.
Do you read me?
This is the Video Ray, a camera-equipped remote-operated vehicle, or ROV. Remarkable for its size and maneuverability, the Video Ray can squeeze into places that are inaccessible to divers or manned submersibles.
That is stacks of copper ingots, stacks of them.
And finally, there's the cutting team. Finding evidence of the second explosion involves gaining access into one or more targeted areas of the wreck. The task will require a technique called abrasive water jet cutting, which uses a powerful stream of water and grit to slice through the ship's hull. This delicate process demands split-second coordination and is perhaps the most controversial aspect of the expedition.
We're only 3-4 meters away. We're really close, over.
In no other authorized dive has there ever been anyone that have actually cut their way in to see what could be found inside.
Cozy in there, John.
Coming up.
If I were in your position, my heart would be in my throat.
Well, it's been a long time coming, so obviously it can't happen soon enough. I just want to get on with it.
The Lusitania lies around 20 kilometers off the Irish coast and some 58 kilometers from Cove, at a depth of 100 meters or 328 feet. Since the 1960s, there have been many exploratory dives on the wreck, but no one has ever brought along this much technology to unravel the mystery, and no one has ever attempted cutting through the hull to look for evidence of explosive damage.
We've talked a lot. You've gone through all the planning with the department and everything else, and the thing I want to know is, how big a crapshoot is this?
Even if we're successful in cutting the hole is so small, there could be a girder right on the other side of the hole. We really have to think on the fly and make decisions accordingly. There are just so many different variables that could interfere with our investigation that we just have to stay flexible. So it's always a crapshoot.
Once on site, our expedition ship, the Granuaile, will moor up anchors and lie directly over the wreck. At depth, the remains of the Lusitania are shrouded by murky water, but she is oriented in approximately this configuration, resting with her starboard side, where the torpedo hit, against the seafloor. Halfway to the wreck site, the team gathers to review the expedition plan.
This is a cross-section of the area, and you can see the reserve coal bunker right here in the middle, which is where the magazine was and where the high explosives would have been stored. And the torpedo came in at 10 feet, approximately 10 feet, 3 meters is what it was set at, below the water line. So that means that it came in right in around here.
There is a large hole in that area, which is probably from the wreck is collapsing over time. Based on a side scan image the Navy took, you can see that dark patch there, which is evident of a large hole. This is the bow section here. That is the debris field, and that is like the port hull. You can see there's a crack in the middle of the hull, but it's about halfway along the hull. And our primary place of interest is just here. And that is, as you can see, there is a large breach in that area. We just need to determine how big that is and if it's in
the right location.
The right location, yeah.
Right. There's a huge gash, so we may get all kinds of good information from that.
What is today a rusted ruin was once one of the engineering marvels of modern civilization. When she was launched in 1906, the Lusitania was the world's largest man-made moving object. Longer than 2.5 football fields, she was the first ship to cross the Atlantic in less than 5 days. 25 separate boilers powered 4 steam turbine engines with a total of 68,000 horsepower. But the Lusitania was more than a passenger liner. A generous construction loan from the British government gave the Royal Navy the right to convert the Lusitania into an armed merchant cruiser in the event of war. This dual role meant the Lusitania was built to certain military specifications, which required that the machinery be located below the waterline as a safeguard against shelling from enemy ships. Longitudinal bulkheads ran between the outer hull and the boiler rooms and were used as coal bunkers. They were believed to provide added protection from surface attack. But little thought was given to what might happen below the waterline in the event of a torpedo strike.
We're coming up on the site right now, but we've got the 4 yellow buoys out there which mark the anchors we have for the 4-point moor. And then there's a little black flag which marks the shot line to get us oriented to the exact spot on the wreck that we want to go to.
The shot line is a weight with line and buoy attached that's been dropped to mark the wreck's location. It's especially valuable in the murky water. On a good day, visibility here is no more than 3 to 4.5 meters.
Just when you're finished at that buoy, could you go over to that shot line? And we want to try to get you to transfer it alongside us.
Bridge deck.
Yeah, this is a video ray remotely operated vehicle. It has a electronic housing with cameras. We have 2 horizontal motors that give us about 4 knots of speed.
What's the worry today?
Well, the unknown. We've never been here, so we don't know what's down there, and it's risky. When we do this kind of work, every time you dive, you hope it comes back.
Kiss it goodbye.
Okay, Steve, you can launch now.
All right, ROV in the water.
For most of the team, this initial survey dive by the video ray will be their first glimpse of the wreck. The goal is pinpointing an ideal cut spot. The entry hole must be on the port side of the ship, opposite to the blast cavities on the starboard side, a search complicated by the poor visibility.
All right, we're coming up on 70 meters. I think we're gonna slow it down a little bit. Passing 70. Okay, stop. We hit bottom. Stop. All right, we got a portal. We're on the wreck. All right, do you recognize these holes here?
Yep. If you could just fly across that and I just want to confirm that is the breach. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So if you want to just have a look down in there.
Despite the murk, it's obvious that natural forces have opened up several new breaches in the hull. It's unknown if this will help or hinder the investigation.
All right, here we go. What do you think, Steve?
No guts, no glory.
No guts, no glory.
Yeah, it seems like it's all just caved in.
In that particular area, as you can see, there is a lot of damage.
That's an interesting bit.
It's kind of twisted steel, yeah. That doesn't look natural, does it?
No.
Greg has seen the wreckage many times, but since his last dive in 2004, there's been serious deterioration.
There's certainly chaos in this area. That much is safe to say. Whether it's chaos from collapsing or whether it's chaos from the explosion I wouldn't say yet.
Choosing the cut spot is critical, since whatever is found inside may provide important data for the testing at Lawrence Livermore Lab. Unfortunately, the new breaches are not useful. They're too far away from the cargo area that might reveal signs of an explosion.
How will you know here where the cut spot is?
We've seen it. We know that there's no breach we can take advantage of. We're going to have to make the cut if we want to go in there and see what's happened. We've come down the line, and what we want to do is actually cut down here. There's not going to be a meaningful examination for many more years. So this looks like the best chance we've got of trying to learn more about what happened.
The expedition's task just got much more difficult. At the rate the wreck is crumbling, the odds are against finding significant evidence of the 1915 blast damage.
I'm going to give you this. Okay, right, Grant, so you can record what I'm doing.
Day 3 is about prep for the cutting operation. First, the tech divers will scrape the cut spot free of concretion, a buildup of sand, shells, and other sediments that, after almost 100 years, has become as hard as concrete. This is one of the most dangerous parts of the expedition.
Gentle sigh.
Showtime. My name is Owen McGarry. I'm a diver for up on 24 years. And I've been diving the wrecks off the south coast of Ireland for that time.
Units calibrated, batteries are okay.
Several years ago, I got the intrigue to go and dive on the wreck of the Lusitania.
Okay, you're completing your 3-minute pre-dive. Breathe in now.
I do remember the feeling of that first glimpse of the wreck. It was like almost travelling back in time to a graveyard.
On the day the Lusitania set out on her final voyage, an ominous advertisement appeared in New York papers next to the Cunard notice of the sailing.
Notice: travelers intending to embark on the Atlantic voyage are reminded that a state of war exists between Germany and her allies and Great Britain and her allies. The zone of war includes the waters adjacent to the British Isles. And travelers sailing in the war zone on ships of Great Britain or her allies do so at their own risk.
While some passengers had seen the warning, few, if any, were aware that the ship's manifest listed some 4 million rounds of .303 rifle ammunition bound for the British Army.
It was a very wonderful day. It was very nice and sunshiny, and there have been a lot of people, I have been told, who had cancelled their passage at the last moment. I don't blame them in the least bit.
The ship departed New York in the early afternoon. 2 final photographs were taken from another vessel a few hours later. The Lusitania then headed east toward the Irish coast and the German submarine.
Yeah, you're gonna jump now.
At 8:30 a.m., tech divers Owen McGarry and Philip Murphy begin their descent. Their destination is a spot about halfway down the hull, outside the forward reserve coal bunker, which doubled as a magazine. The team hopes that once the cut is made, the interior of this area will reveal damage from the secondary explosion. The extreme depth limits divers to 30 minutes bottom time. A mandatory 2.5-hour decompression during ascent increases the risk of hypothermia.
They're going to go down and scrape off an area that needs to be cleaned so we can put the magnets on it and start the cutting. And they're going to have to measure that out. So they're hard at work down there. As long as they don't talk, we know what's going on.
Exactly, yes.
The concretion is heavier than anticipated, and Owen's efforts soon become labored. The dive plan is starting to unravel. Communications are distorted because of the helium in the gas mixture.
This is topside. Do you read me? Owen, this is topside. Do you read me? Say again. Owen, are you trying to talk to us?
Phil, can you confirm if Owen is with you?
Understood. Owen sent up a signal to indicate he's a bit short on one gas or another. Our guys are getting drop gas down to him. The divers are just getting kitted up now to see if they can go down and see what the problem is.
We've deployed the standby diver and the emergency gas just to ensure that he's got all the gas and he has company. Sit down there, mate.
I had a breach in the loop where it allowed some water in, and as I was unaware of this, but I was still doing some work, I couldn't get enough breath, so I decided that was it. I was turning the dive and I was going to head back up.
Never a dull moment. That's right, that's right.
If you start to worry or you start to freak out, panic, you may as well just forget about it. If you can't sort it out, you've no business diving to that depth.
So you decided that basically you'd better stop.
I decided to bail out, Joe. It was the safest thing to do at that time.
But did you get the job done? That's the important thing.
Well, we got most of it done.
That's my man.
Despite the difficulties, enough concretion was removed for the cutting operation to go forward. But within an hour, the weather takes an unfortunate turn.
Up, Anto, if you're having a problem there.
Kick her over the port, please, to stop our snot.
If the weight comes on the port buoy, you can pay out to that as well. We can leave everything slack.
The bad weather will ultimately force the dive schedule to be suspended for 2 days, and the Granuaile will leave the wreck site for calmer waters. The German submarine, or U-boat, that sank the Lusitania was designated the U-20. Commissioned in 1913 and powered by diesel engines, the sub was equipped with 4 torpedo tubes, 2 in the bow and 2 in the stern. On April 30th, 1915, the day before the Lusitania set sail, the U-20 left her base in Emden for a war patrol that would take her north around Scotland and then south to St. George's Channel. Her mission was simple: enforce the zone of war around the British Isles by targeting ships going in and out of Liverpool. The U-20 carried at least 7 torpedoes, including the newer G6 type model. Each G6 was about 6 meters long, 530 millimeters in diameter, and had a warhead containing 160 kilograms of a TNT-like explosive. These deadly weapons had a maximum speed of over 70 kilometers an hour. Twin rear-mounted propellers rotating in opposite directions kept the torpedo on a straight, steady course. The man making the firing decisions aboard the U-20 was 30-year-old Captain Walter Schweiger, who in 3 previous patrols had been credited with sinking over 45,000 metric tons of Allied shipping. By all accounts, Schweiger was conscientious and precise, popular with both officers and crew. After 2 days of inactivity, the weather finally clears. With most of the concretion removed from the cut site, all systems are now go. The goal is to access the ship's lower cargo area in order to photograph internal damage that might support one of 4 scenarios for the second explosion. Contraband munitions, either gun cotton or aluminum powder. An organic explosion from coal dust, or a boiler rupture. But first, the team has to get inside, a delicate undertaking that calls for precise coordination.
This is the cutting tool that we're going to make the cut with. The new suit guy, he will have to install it. We will lower it down on an umbilical reel and he will install it at the correct cutting spot.
Once we get the plate out, we're going to want to secure that gear clamp in case the plate does come off the magnets.
Yeah, that's a possibility when we recover it.
I think today it's going to be very exciting, and I just hope very much that we can get into the side of the ship where we're planning to cut our first hole and maybe a second.
This orange unit pumping high pressure water into the mixer unit. It will come down in this blue hose and it will come out of the nozzle in about 800 kilometers an hour. We'll make a complete 360-degree cut.
The mission seems simple. Cut a hole, lower the video ray camera, and look inside the ship. In the best case, the process will uncover blast evidence that can help inform the tests planned at the California Explosives Laboratory.
When we lower this down to the ship side, we're going to engage the magnets. If you have a very clean surface, each magnet will hold about 300 kilo. If everything works as it's supposed to do, it will cut like butter.
The Newt suit, piloted by Jonathan Feather, will launch first, followed by the dual deep worker submarine, and then the cutting tool.
So was Jonathan taking his last piss, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Doing his last Hail Marys.
Yeah, we got to get you in the water before we can get in the water.
Right.
We're now 10 minutes past slack tide, are we?
So long as we can get it in position, that's the thing. Once we're locked to the deck for the first cut, then our success rate has just gone up, a lot.
Cozy in there, John.
As soon as we get up. Coming up a little bit more so we can get them up and over everything. Pull them into the ship. Okay, hold that. We'll get him out a few meters and then get him in the water. Gonna have to give him power while he's on the hook. Okay, let's start down slow there, Jonathan. Do your watertight checks, then power him up.
Unlike the tech divers, the Newt suit pilot can stay underwater for hours at a time. But because he's tethered to the staging ship, he has slightly less mobility.
Okay, Jonathan, I'm gonna wake up the transducer.
Aha, there's the wreck. Hey, wow.
He's on the wreck. He's on the wreck.
Okay, so I'm just hanging out at the cut site here.
Prep for the sub.
Next down is the 2-man sub, piloted by Jeff Heaton. Greg will ride shotgun.
Rest assured, if you get snagged, I'll be down after.
Good, thank you. I'll be looking out for you. No, I won't. I don't want to see you. I don't want to get snagged.
We're set to launch. We just launched the sub, so he's working his way over to the downline right now. He'll join the suit at the bottom.
As the sub is launched, Greg is all too aware that this expedition may be his last opportunity to see the Lusitania up close.
Jeff, let's spin around a little bit here.
Neither of them is getting any younger.
Oh, I would be very surprised if I ever visit this wreck again. The ship is just plain falling apart, and as it falls apart, it accelerates because as things give away, more give away, and it collapses on itself.
ROV Bridge, waiting for a report.
Confirm you are ready for launch of the cutter.
Deep worker is ready. Over.
Good copy.
So we'll take it down to around 70 and we'll see if they can get a visual on it.
Jeff has visual on cutter. Sub has visual on cutter.
Roger. I estimate maybe another 2 meters to go, and then we'll be on site. Over.
Good copy. 2 meters, 2 meters.
Right. Okay.
got it in place. Ah, good. You just hit the latch on the magnet, you'll be all set. You know how to trip the magnets. That's good.
He was able to engage the magnets.
The 4 magnets are needed to lock the tool to the hull and raise the cut plate. But residual concretion is making it difficult.
Topside deep worker, go ahead.
Second magnet engaged.
Good copy.
John? Yeah, if you can get the front.
Okay, well I can't really right now because I'm holding on to the tool to stop from blowing away on the wreck here, so.
And he's having a little bit of trouble with the current. It's come up quite a bit.
Can you lock onto anything on that thing?
No.
There's not really anything to lock on, is there?
No.
Okay, stand by, John.
Dive suit, no viz at this time. He didn't know if the second magnet grabbed. It might have engaged off the deck. It's a tricky job. There's a current. The visibility has gone for crap, so we're gonna just do the best we can down there.
Minutes later, the submarine experiences a partial battery failure.
I had a little bit of a power issue. Nothing serious, nothing to write home about. The viz is not tremendous.
Okay, I'll stop, Jeff. Stop. Okay, we gotta recover him. Yeah.
There's no choice but to bring the sub back up in case the remaining batteries also fail.
That's about all you can really do, Doug.
Okay. Keep her tight, man.
With the current building underwater, the newt suit must surface as well.
None of the stuff is scripted, of course. It's changing as you go. And so you have to have that ability to react to what you see, what you do, and come back up and say, look, this is what we got to do next. Here's what we have to make. What we thought before isn't the case.
Okay, so far so good. But we've got the limited time, so the people up on the surface are proposing that we send the newt suit back down in 15 to 30 minutes so we can hit the slack tide. Support will be the tech divers. The submersible won't go back down again because of changing the batteries.
When I laid the tool in there, the first magnet I flicked pulled up another chunk of concretion. So now the tool is not sitting on 4 magnets in any way. It's kind of loose and wobbly. We're gonna have to lift it and clean a little better and get a bit more of a flat area to try and put the tool back down again.
Yeah, I think we have to focus cutting to the chase as quick as we can because we're already running out of time.
We've got 2 hours of good tide starting at about 5 o'clock. And we need to get that cut done.
We'll get your chariot ready for you.
Visibility is probably 10 feet, so you don't have a great deal of a perspective. He's working against the tide and against the tools he's using, and it's not easy.
Okay, do you want to clean there first and then?
Okay, let me just get down here.
Just so long as we're on the same level.
Yeah, copy that.
What's going on, AJ?
He's having trouble with the current.
Yes.
It's come up, and now he's unable to get around and get laid down low enough. So that's basically what he's fighting with right now.
I think the current's got us here, so we're fighting the current on the tether, I think is the deal.
It's not going to happen. I don't think we can go anymore.
Is there a flange that you can lock your legs around so that you could actually hold yourself down?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we gotta recover.
Okay, well, I need an arm to come up the down line.
Let's swing him off a little bit, and then we're gonna recover.
Good call there, Doug.
The second attempt to attach the cutter also fails. The current is simply too strong for the newt suit to deploy the magnets.
For me down there, there's nothing I can do. I can't move that tool. You know, it weighs more than I do. It still weighs 50 kilos down there, and I weigh 5 pounds. The longer I was down there, the more the current picked up. By the end, it was a little hairy there getting back to the downline.
By morning of the 6th day, the weather has calmed. But the afternoon forecast is for more heavy currents and large swells. Time has run out for the cutting team, which must leave Ireland tomorrow.
According to the skipper, the high winds are coming, so this might be it. If we can't get the cut done, there's going to be the tendency to try and push things. I think we need to kind of throttle that back, because if the ship starts getting pushed around while we're all in, that's going to make for a really, really bad recovery. Any questions? Let's go for it.
Bang bang. Chop chop.
Doug Bishop will pilot the newt suit for today's dive.
Good copy. Have good tracking. Proceed to bottom.
Yeah, the tool's in the water right now. They're just starting to clip the video right into it.
Copy.
There's the area he's been cleaning.
That's pretty great, isn't it?
ROV 5 meters.
We're only 3-4 meters away. We're really close. Over.
Deep worker, we are swinging the cutting head.
Notify the suit that the magnets are engaged this time, so it will lock on when it gets there.
Copy that.
Now drop it.
Wind is kind of gusting, no, I'm not saying gusting, Doug, but it's blowing off to the port beam here, so we're probably getting pushed in the wrong direction. Yeah, okay.
Looks like he's struggling with it a bit. The thing weighs a lot. It looks like he's just trying to get her into position, because right now it's laying on its side. After that, hopefully we can get those magnets locked down. It looks like he's getting pretty close.
There we go. Good. It's landed right where it's bare, it's scraped, it's beautiful.
Yeah, we've got the tool in place, so we're ready to cut you free. Are you ready to go?
Roger, I'm ready to go. Make sure, number one, you're cutting.
The line as close to the manipulator as you can, and then my tether spool.
All right, ready when you are.
There he goes.
Before the cutting can commence, the weather starts to turn.
Ray, could you find out from me how long more the divers are going to be in the water? I'm concerned now that the wind is beginning to freshen as forecasted, and we're just starting to get some strain on the forward port buoy. So I just need to know how long more he's going to be down there, because I will have to make a decision quite soon.
Okay, how much time do you think we have?
I'd like them out in about half an hour, 45 minutes.
Okay, all right, let me see what I can do. Jonathan, can you give me any kind of ETA? Captain says the winds are starting to pick up.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I can feel the wind coming up too. We're just getting the cutter ready, so I'm hoping 5 minutes and we should flash up the cutter. So, success or failure within 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay, thanks.
Okay, we're ready to fire up. Are you ready to go hot, Doug?
Yeah, roger that.
Yeah, you can engage the pump. Come up to 500.
We're set.
Okay, everybody's ready. Yeah, okay.
I have no clue what's going to happen. How violent is this thing when it starts?
It will disturb the seabed a little bit.
There's some of the black stuff.
Yeah, just wondering if you're seeing any cutting yet.
Oh yeah, we got cutting. There's a few inches done so far. It's moving nice and slow towards us, and it's doing its job.
Compared to what we normally catch, it's a quite thin plate, so we don't need a big flow and the pressure.
The cutter has stirred up so much stuff. I think it's now going through concretion, and it's just created a cloud of debris down there. It's difficult to see anything. I mean, I can probably try to hold right here. This isn't too bad.
So Dermot, how much time do we have?
I would really like to see the diver starting to wrap up now. The wind has increased. I'm now using the thruster to take the pressure off that rope.
The cutting tool is 10 inches away from being complete.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. But if I call it a halt and he's 2 millimeters to go, we're gonna have to call it a halt, okay?
Yeah, the weather's coming up quick, and I'm getting nervous. But we're set, so, you know, one swing of the thing, it's gonna work or it's not, and that's the only chance we're gonna get, so. And then we gotta get everyone out quick. Time is of the essence now.
We're almost done. That much.
Left, you're down. That much. That much, Captain.
There it is.
It looks like
we're through.
Maybe.
it did a very nice job, yeah.
Oh, the cut is complete. We want to get that shut off and get the hell out of here as soon as we can. Look at the weather. It's totally gone crazy out there.
Yeah, come on down. So Raymond, so you know, we're just lifting the tool now.
We need a heads up before we do it.
Before we pull it, yeah.
Yeah.
Lift away.
Okay, this is it. Oh, crap.
There's the answer over there.
We lost the plate, so it won't be coming up with it.
Oh, and of course,
That's unfortunate.
there was no budge on that.
We didn't see any movement either.
No,
Need a tire iron.
it's dead.
I'm sure the depth of cut was fine.
It's 2 rivets.
Yeah,
I
think that's
may
probably.
not have gone through it.
I think that's probably what it was.
All right, let's pull this thing up. Let's go.
It's frustrating. We hit a rivet line and it looks like we picked up a beam, so that prohibited us from making a complete cut. It was just really unfortunate.
Well, being the bearer of bad news for this afternoon, the weather is increasing, the wind is increasing, giving us 2 problems. One is being able to hold our position on the buoys. The second being that the diver's rescue rib is now becoming exposed to the weather side of the ship. I can make a very clear and definite call that there will be no physical diving off this ship this afternoon.
Nothing ever comes easy, so not with the Lusitania, so. However, let's look at the positive side. We had a lot of action down there today. We got some great footage, so I don't think it's all a waste at all. Just we haven't quite been able to grab the golden ring yet.
It is a moment of profound disappointment for Greg Bemis. It's his opinion that a contraband shipment of gun cotton caused the second explosion. And even with the testing to come at Lawrence Livermore Lab, he believes that getting inside the wreck itself is the best way to discover what really happened to the Lusitania.
On Monday, there was nothing very special, just the ordinary games that they play on board. And Tuesday, very much the same, Wednesday. But Thursday, I noticed there was a difference among the people. And I didn't feel very comfortable Thursday night, but I didn't know anything about a warning.
Thursday evening, May 6th, the Lusitania's captain, William Turner, was receiving general reports of U-boat activity off the Irish coast. The mood on board the ship grew tense. Some passengers even spent the night in the public rooms or on deck, too nervous to stay in their cabins.
I noticed that people had been sleeping that last night in the lounges. I think a number of them felt that they didn't want to be trapped in their cabins. I didn't feel that way about it at all. I felt that if I was going to be drowned, it didn't much matter whether I was drowned in my cabin or in the lounge.
It was now Friday morning. The Lusitania drew closer to the war zone and the waiting U-20. Two working days left. The weather is still a major problem, and the options for further investigation are running out.
As forecast, we still have too much wind and swell to go diving today. We can't put technical divers in the water today, so a knock-on from that, as I understand, is no nude suit or submersible today, unfortunately, Greg.
You don't think it's going to quiet down enough this afternoon to slip something in for a little bit?
The weather window for this afternoon is very small.
Yeah.
The wind may well come down, but the swell is quite high now today. It's over 2 meters at times now. Unfortunately, when the wind dies, the swell just doesn't die with it.
Sadly, because of the weather conditions, you kind of see the whole thing unraveling because we can't get in the water. Our time is limited, and all we've left is to put the ROV in the water to see what we can now start investigating what's in those holes.
We haven't wanted to go into them because we haven't wanted to take the time and risk of tying up the video array. But at this point, looks like that's our best option. We're running out of time here, so we're sort of locked into video array today, and we'll see what happens tomorrow and the next day.
No pressure, huh?
No pressure at all.
It's now down to hit or miss. The video ray must find a hull breach close enough to the cut spot to access the cargo area. Pick the wrong breach or make a wrong turn, and it's over.
How are you feeling about putting this in today?
Good right now. The only thing we have to worry about is current and getting on target. Chances of getting snagged are better than 50%. Worst case, the Lusitania claims another victim.
The video ray is lowered. With any luck, time and deterioration will have done the job that sophisticated tools could not.
Deck bridge. We can't see it. Expect a bit of us to prepare some more.
Oh, it's nice down there today.
More turbulence, isn't there?
Yeah. There's our cut site.
Oh, okay. They've started to rust over there a wee bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long, does it?
No.
Through the murk, the video ray reveals a large hole in the wreck, 4 to 5 meters above the cut spot.
Brian, are you coming back up the way or going down the way?
I'm back up.
Yeah. Well, not now, you're inside now.
Yeah.
The investigation has finally gotten a break, a big break. To everyone's surprise, the video ray doesn't just get inside the wreck. It is somehow able to maneuver down through 2 collapsed deck levels, all the way to the interior cargo area.
There's rounds of ammunition there in front of you. See those?
Yes.
Yeah, they're 303 rounds.
Yeah.
Right there.
What was the total cargo?
4 million rounds.
4 million.
There's more ammunition shells, yeah, and that's the timber boxes, yeah.
It looks like the boxes are just rotted away and they're still stacked there.
You're in the cargo area.
Wow, they're just
So, were they stacked? Were they created in boxes?
They
What
were
does the manifest
They were
state?
created in boxes, but there was no specific place for them. What they'd do is they'd load the larger cargo, and if there was a gap beside a large crate and the bulwarks, they'd actually shove a box of ammunition in just to stabilize
Use
the
them as
entire
packing.
cargo. Yeah.
Right.
They're literally just covering the floor.
Well, there's a massive shells there, aren't there?
This looks like our cutting from yesterday.
Brian and his amazing pilot skills, he'd put the ROV into the breach above, and now we've discovered some significant results from that, which is great for everybody. We're a long way in, Greg.
If I had to guess, I'd say we're probably about 20 feet inside this breach.
That's a copper ingot right in front of you.
Yes,
See that?
Yeah, right there.
No,
to the right.
To the right of that, Greg.
Right
See
there.
that?
Oh, right there, right there.
It's like
yeah.
that Toblerone bar. That's a copper ingot.
Was that on the manifest as well?
Yeah.
Sure was.
That is stacks of copper ingots. Stacks of them.
Look at that.
Oh,
Holy
God.
smokes.
This is what I bought it for in '68. Now we're trying to do the history thing, and so we need to not only recognize what's there, but we also need to try to figure out how this thing was sunk in 18 minutes. It's very hard to differentiate between straight destruction from a blast of one kind or another versus 95 years of collapse. Whenever I see these stringers at an acute angle from the rest of it, it implies that it was part of an explosive reaction rather than just falling in. Here you've got girders crossing each other, different directions, that one, this one, this one. How do you get turmoil like that without some massive internal explosion?
We're seeing some pretty interesting stuff in there. We are seeing some hull plates, some beams, which are in orientations now which can't really be explained from the way she settled naturally. We're starting to think that perhaps we're seeing some blast damage, something from, dare we say, secondary explosion.
Well, this is definitely a step forward. We've accumulated a lot of useful information this afternoon with those views. This is pretty much the first time inside because we've always been very reluctant to go inside with divers. We got where we wanted to get, but we had to do it the hard way.
The final morning dawns beautifully, but the current is still up. Once again, only the video ray is cleared to dive. The objective is to recover one of the cartridges found yesterday.
So the other day we found some pretty interesting stuff. We came upon very neatly stacked wooden boxes that were obviously showing some decay, but on top there was piles of ammunition, 303 rounds from what I was told.
Well, there are like tiered stacks.
Tiered stacks, and here we go.
Oh, look.
So there's a lot
Thousands of them.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of loose ones, though. We should bring one up.
I think we should offer it a bit more, and if there is maybe one that is sort of sticking up and has got a good kind of lift capacity, we should go for it.
Preservation's good. We should get some interesting data from it.
Give me the go-ahead. You got one.
Okay, let's go for it.
Okay.
The trick is to pick it up without setting off the whole pile.
There we go. That's a good one. All right, well, I'm going for it.
Wow.
Squeeze, baby, squeeze.
Sweet, there we go. All right.
Good for you, Brian. Good for you.
Good catch.
Looks like we got a 30 caliber round with a little bit of accretion on it. Go ahead. So we don't pull. Go ahead. Just
Okay, I'm
go.
clear.
Go.
Okay. No, that's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
We are after coming into an area that we haven't been in before. The first thing we saw were the huge, enormous quantities of ammunition that obviously is still in situ. Last person who touched them was the guy who loaded them in there. And I think that's amazing.
What do you think, Ian? Oh, I think it should go on display. Don't want to end up in a dusty storeroom somewhere.
Even though the team has recovered hard evidence of munitions and penetrated deeper into the wreck than ever before, there is no conclusive evidence of what caused the second explosion. It will now be up to the scientists at Lawrence Livermore to bring the Lusitania into their laboratory for a different kind of exploration. But that is weeks away.
Dee, can you ask the bridge for him to tell us if he's ready?
The field expedition still has one more mission.
Deck bridge, clear to deploy.
The video ray is launched for the last time. Its target is the debris field that surrounds the physical wreck, an area strewn with haunting reminders of the Lusitania's final minutes. On the morning of May 7th, the Lusitania's last day, Captain William Turner found a thick layer of fog obscuring his route. Had the fog not lifted a few hours later, history might have been very different. But it did lift, leaving the Lusitania exposed. That's when Turner made a critical decision. Royal Navy wartime regulations called for all ships, military or not, to travel a zigzag course in the zone of war. But in order to calculate his precise position, Turner set a straight course parallel to the coast. That put him directly in front of the U-20. 700 meters away, Captain Walter Schweiger ordered his crew to prepare one torpedo for firing. Then, he gave the order.
Navigation bridge, go.
Yeah, tracking is good.
Shot line is on bottom.
Where are you trying to set this ROV?
We're in the debris field right now.
Copy that. I show you approximately 2 meters from the point marked bridge.
Roger that, good copy. 2 meters from the bridge.
So we're heading for the keel now, are we?
No, you're just in front of the bridge area. That's the teak decking you see there to the top of the screen, that's the timber. It's a piece of the railing. It's one of the handrails along the wall that you run your hand along. There's the telemotor straight ahead. It's one of the bridge telegraphs, which would be directly below the bridge area. It's there in there too.
Yeah, there's the base of it.
Yep.
The base. You can see the stand of it.
That's where the captain would have stood. There's a porthole.
It's still got the glass in it, though.
Yes.
It does, yeah. Brilliant.
That's the waste of a sink with a cleaning drain at the end.
It is.
That's one of the big water tanks, and there was a big lid on that opened up. I know, is it some sort of air vent? That's a bathtub, and that's the shower and closet.
Yeah, bathtub.
Look at that.
You can see the shower head at the top end of it. It's amazing how that frame has stayed without being buckled and twisted.
Yeah.
It's still up top of the superstructure. That big thing with the turnout, that's like one of the lifeboat davits. But sadly, a lot of those lifeboats were never launched off those davits.
We've gone further inside this wreck than anybody's ever gone before. And what we've seen in the debris field is artifacts that really bring the human element into play. We're seeing artifacts that Captain Turner himself had his hands on the morning the ship was torpedoed. It just defies description.
To be quite honest, I'm sad. I don't want to go to port. It's kind of as if it's unfinished business. There's a lot more yet to do. We didn't actually get to do what we set out to do, but you know, we have discovered a lot, we have accomplished a lot, but maybe just not enough.
She is a beautiful thing down there, lying in all of her agony, and we want to keep that alive as part of our history. She'll be there when I'm long gone. That's right. She won't deteriorate as fast as I do.
For Greg Bemis, this is hardly the end. His search will now take him some 8,000 kilometers from the wreck site to one of the premier explosives laboratories in the United States. May 7th, 1915. At 2:10 p.m. on the Lusitania, lunch service was ending. 700 meters away, on board the U-20, a torpedo left its firing tube. It would take about 35 seconds for that torpedo to strike. A death sentence for 1,198 men, women, and children. With the field expedition over, the Lusitania investigation shifted to Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in Northern California. A secure facility funded by the Department of Energy, it was established in 1952 to spur innovation and competition in nuclear weapons design. The science of explosives is quite simply their business. 3 months after leaving Ireland, Greg Bemis, accompanied by historian Martin Morgan and naval architect marine engineer Ken Smith, met with a team of Livermore scientists to discuss testing protocol. The group also reviewed the second explosion theories and the data uncovered during the expedition.
One of the things we learned this summer was the substantial destruction in the interior of the ship. We were working in approximately this area, coming in from the other side, of course. And we could roam around with our ROV quite extensively at probably up to 2 or 3 or 4 different levels. We have to think about what explosive would have done so much damage to the inside of the ship.
Was it a cloud of coal dust kicked up by the torpedo? Was it a boiler or steam line rupture? Or was it an illegal cargo of war materials, either aluminum powder, a key component in mines, or gun cotton, an artillery propellant? The question Livermore is going to try and answer is simple. Would any of these 4 scenarios have produced an explosion capable of sinking the Lusitania? An explosion that also fits the eyewitness descriptions of the blast.
What we plan to do is to test these various scenarios. Our goal is to show how they would have behaved. Whether that answers the question definitively is to be determined, but at least we can certainly say the aluminum explosion would have looked like this, and the coal dust explosion would have been like this.
The Livermore scientists had prepared a series of practical tests and computer simulations. Almost certainly, this is the first time that all 4 scenarios will be evaluated using accepted scientific methods.
This is the 10-kilogram chamber. It can detonate up to 22 pounds of TNT equivalencies. These are high-speed cameras here. We have X-ray systems, a ventilation system.
If I could get you to put these on. Frankly, the most hazardous thing we're going to do is handle that aluminum powder.
The first test involves aluminum powder, an ingredient used in British Army mines that some believe was on board the Lusitania.
If we could go out of here knowing what happened, that would be really cool. But we've got a lot of assumptions that are built into the testing we do, so I think the best we'll get to is a more likely than not, confident that this might be the cause, but I don't think we'll get to a certainty.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
That is an aluminum explosion.
Wow.
There, look at it come apart.
Yeah. Boom. Blew the top off. It's still settling.
Look at it go, just like fireworks.
The Livermore team quickly ruled out aluminum powder as the cause of the secondary explosion. One reason? Eyewitness accounts.
One of the things that is clear about this is how bright aluminum is when it's burning. It's tremendously bright. And in none of the information that we've seen is there any statement about a bright light of the explosion coming out here. And so if the ship had been breached and if the aluminum was present, one might expect to have seen this illumination even in broad day, and that was not observed.
There are 3 scenarios left to test. Coal dust is next. The Lusitania's longitudinal bulkheads, which formed spaces used as coal bunkers, may have made it particularly vulnerable to a torpedo strike. But could these same chambers have provided fuel for a second explosion once the torpedo struck? There's only one way to find out.
Okay, and here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Impressive.
It's a lot bigger than I thought it was.
That's gold dust.
Gold dust. It's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Let's see what we got on the high-speed cameras.
There it goes. So that's like a lot more fury than I expected out of this explosion.
Yeah, there is a lot of fury there, but compared to the other materials, it's still relatively low. You have to put things in relation to each other because any one of them on human scale is very, very dramatic and very violent and very fast, instantaneous. But it's the power and energy on a time scale that we cannot comprehend. We can't detect it, but the instrumentation.
So that explosion would be lethal to individuals, but may not do any structural damage to the ship or a significant structural damage.
Although coal dust presents a dramatic visual that better fits eyewitness accounts, the power of such an explosion would not have been sufficient to sink the Lusitania.
When you really look at the violence of reaction, there's not a lot of power in coal dust explosions. There's a tremendous amount of energy. You can make a lot of noise, but to tear the hull off of the Lusitania, I think we've demonstrated that that's highly unlikely.
2 scenarios left to test. From his position on the bridge of the Lusitania, Captain Turner said the torpedo hit sounded like a door slamming. Just 15 to 30 seconds later came the second explosion. A blast observed on the decks of the Lusitania and noted by U-20 Commander Walter Schweiger in his log. Shot struck starboard side. An extraordinary heavy detonation followed with a very large cloud of smoke. Boiler or coal or powder.
And the ship started to shake and shudder. And the ship gave another lurch and everything was thrown all over the place.
The ship began to list severely to the starboard side. In 18 minutes, the Lusitania was gone.
I was awful scared. I just saw a lot of children in the boat, but there must have been adults too, you know. But they went over. They just went over.
And the children were just spewed out
I suppose they were drowned.
Already, aluminum powder and coal dust have been ruled out as the cause of the secondary explosion. Next up, gun cotton, the munitions component allegedly hidden in the Lusitania's cargo compartments. Though the images from the dive expedition were inconclusive, this is the theory Greg Bemis believes is the most probable.
What we'll have is gun cotton packed in a clear plastic tube that's representative thickness like that of the boxes the gun cotton would have been packed in on board the ship. We'll put that gun cotton inside our 4-foot plastic cube and then light it and see what happens.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, there we go.
Table flying around in the air? Is that right?
Yes.
So it's a little more violent.
I think the gun cotton was the most likely scenario. You know, this was kind of the suspicious character in the room when we came in, and I don't see anything that takes the suspicion away from this character yet.
Although the power of the explosion was sufficient to break the equivalent of a bulletproof windshield,
I'll keep this as my souvenir.
the scientists do not believe it caused the second explosion. The problem lies with the time delay. 15 to 30 seconds elapsed between the torpedo strike and the second blast. But the test showed that a gun cotton explosion would have been almost instantaneous to the torpedo detonating.
So, you know, the energy's there, the power's there. Can you really make that go off? It's very speculative. It's something that seems highly unlikely. And so that's where we come to the problem with the gun cotton.
Although he disagreed with this conclusion, Greg Bemis did take away something from the test.
Having had this theory about the gun cotton sinking the Lusitania for many, many years, it was nice to actually see a gun cotton explosion and get just a sort of a tactile feeling of what it must have been like.
The practical testing set the stage for an examination of the fourth and final scenario, the boiler rupture. Since there was no actual explosive material involved, the Livermore team determined that computer modeling would produce the most accurate result. The first step was to create the torpedo attack itself, using multi-physics software. In modeling the event, the team digitized nearly 3 million spatial points of information about the Lusitania. One of Livermore's powerful supercomputers then crunched the numbers. Unlike hyper-realistic Hollywood animation, the Livermore simulation is based on the laws of physics and thermodynamics.
When we started this project, we weren't sure what we were going to determine, and frankly, I didn't really expect that we would resolve any questions. But seeing that sequence laid out was very eye-opening.
The Livermore computers calculated that the torpedo blast could have created a breach in the hull as large as 6 to 9 meters across, but no smaller than 2 meters.
And if you just went with this smaller hole of a 6-foot diameter, you'd be bringing on somewhere between 500 and 800 tons of water per minute.
In this detail of the model, the orange cylinder represents the 23 metric ton volume of superheated water contained in either of the 2 most forward boilers in boiler room number 1. The mass of cold seawater rushing into the ship could have ruptured a boiler with roughly the same energy as the torpedo hit, and well within the reported time delay.
The secondary explosion in the boiler room will certainly create a very audible explosion, especially as it's connected to the stacks. The explosion would propagate up to the deck. You'd get a lot of dust or coal dust all over the place. It'd be very noticeable.
A boiler explosion fits the eyewitness descriptions, but it would lack the power to severely damage the ship. In other words, it would look and feel bigger than it actually was.
The total energy possible that could be released from the boiler was about 800 pounds of TNT. If you dialed that back to about 1/10 of it, that's an audible boom going up through the funnels, kicking up a lot of dust, shaking the ship, and yet not really doing that much damage.
And so if you were that U-boat captain and you were taking a look at that, that would look like a large explosion. If you were unfortunate enough to be on the deck of the Lusitania, you would have heard a tremendous explosion taking place. Did it do significant damage to the ship hull? Calculations indicate probably not.
The Livermore team believes that out of the 4 scenarios, only a boiler rupture can accommodate both the survivor accounts and the elapsed time between torpedo strike and second explosion. So what could have taken the ship down in just 18 minutes?
So we have the RMS Lusitania steaming at 18 knots. Captain Turner was keeping the Lusitania on a straight course.
The answer may have been there all along. A deadly warhead packed with 160 kilograms of TNT, expertly delivered from exactly the right position, at exactly the right moment, to exactly the right spot.
Going 38 knots, dead on to the Lusitania, and we'll hit her, shown here, 10 feet down below the waterline. Now we're all in microseconds. We're starting to approach about a millisecond here. You see the explosive gases puncturing into the hull of the ship and penetrating into the interior of the coal bunker. And you're starting to see some damage to this transverse bulkhead that's separating the boiler room from the coal bunker. One of the reasons that a torpedo is such an efficient weapon is because of the fact that it's surrounded by water. And that water essentially turns the torpedo into a shape charge because it forces all the energy into one direction into the relatively pliant structure of the ship.
Blowing through the hull and bulkheads, the torpedo almost certainly set off a chain reaction that blew up the boiler, causing witnesses to see and feel a second explosion. But by then, the damage was done. The Lusitania had just 18 minutes to live.
Schweiger got off an incredible shot. He was at the extremes of his torpedo range. The Lusitania was going in a straight line, just right into where he wanted it. And maybe his luck held and he hit it right at its Achilles heel. And it sank.
In all of our work, uncertainty is a key element. To what degree do we know what happened? Now, we know the torpedo hit. and we know the torpedo exploded, and I am confident the torpedo caused catastrophic damage that was fatal to the ship. There's no ambiguity about that in my mind.
It's a conclusion that Greg Bemis does not agree with, because, he says, too many unknown variables remain. Nothing at Livermore has changed his conviction that the second explosion sank the ship, and that it was the result of contraband munitions. Greg believes returning to the wreck site is the key, and only by gaining full access to the magazine and boiler rooms will he find the definitive answer that has eluded him for so long.
The scientists have their opinion of what happened. I don't think we may ever be able to get to the point where we can nail this down to 100%. You can come to a logical scientific conclusion as to what the most likely cause of the second explosion and its influence on the sinking, but you can't eliminate the other possibilities completely. All you can do is categorize them. But we'll keep pushing on this, and anything we can do to bring it a little bit more to closure, I think is a worthwhile effort.
The tragedy of the Lusitania lives on, in memory and in unexpected places. In 1982, 3 of its huge propellers were salvaged. One has found its way to this lawn on the grounds of Old Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Texas, near the setting of another world trauma. Like that other crime, that other trauma, the debate over what sank the Lusitania will never be completely settled. The Lusitania was carrying munitions, but she was also sunk because newly invented rules of war declared her to be a target.
Travelers intending to embark.
There was no one guilty party, only innocent victims.
Where was she found?
She was found 100 miles from where the ship went down, and they recognized her by her underclothing. She had pneumonia just before we started, and she was wrapped in flannels quite a lot. And she had a little tape band. We used to sew them in our underwear in those days with the initials, you know.
What was her name?
My baby? Marjorie.
It is easy to forget that there were people with families and hopes and dreams, just like ourselves. Never forget that this is more than a historical landmark. It is a sacred final resting place for more than 1,000 souls. It is only fitting that we honor their memories with a traditional Irish blessing. The tide recedes but leaves behind bright seashells on the sand. The sun goes down but gentle warmth still lingers on the land. The music stops and yet it echoes on in sweet refrains. For every joy that passes, something beautiful remains.
To all those who have sought an answer to what it was that sank the Lusitania, it is as if she does not want to provide an easy answer to a complex moral question. On May 7, 1915, the rules of war were deliberately erased. There were no civilians anymore, only targets. And the only thing that would change across every subsequent war was the size of the body count, the sophistication of the weapons of mass destruction, and the tactics for their employment. Today, the Lusitania jealously guards her secrets, and soon they will rust into oblivion. beyond history's ability to retrieve them.